Hey everybody, this is Justin Vokey with Top Tier Math, and I want to go over a brief presentation on how to build a growth mindset and actually what a growth mindset is. So let's jump right in. So we'll start off with a very brief overview of what a growth mindset is, and then we'll jump into three tips to start to focus on how to build one. And this can apply to parents and adults as well as to children as well. So basically, a growth mindset is basically one that says, with enough work, I can learn anything and learn it well. And it seems like, okay, well, that's nice, but really, that's what it boils down to. And this comes from the work of Carol Dweck. She's a professor of, I believe, psychology at Stanford University, and I think there was others maybe before her that had found this out, but she was the one that kind of, I think, coined the term growth mindset, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, that's what it comes down to. We have this idea, especially in mathematics, where I'm not a math person, or you may not get the right grades, and you just think I'm not a math person. And she kind of actually, through research, dispelled that notion. There's no such thing as really a math person, unless you think of the savants that come once every 100 years. But that's what it boils down to. With enough work, I can learn anything, and I can learn it well. That's the important takeaway from what a growth mindset really is. And to kind of put it into practice, I kind of just very quickly came up with this, but it's really good. If you fall down, it doesn't mean that you can't walk. You have to just get back up and try again. Okay. So that's what it means. It's about, really, if you want to put it into a certain perspective, it's about, okay, facing a setback or an adversity or getting a problem wrong and not thinking, well, I'm not smart enough to do this. It's just getting back and trying it one more time or two more times, however many times you need to get it right. And we'll go over why that's super important in a second. So tip number one, don't focus on the outcome. For students, this means don't focus on the grade that you get. It's a trap that we all fall into because that's kind of how the school system is. The way we've all been taught is that we're intelligent if we get good grades all the time, and we're not intelligent if we don't get those good grades. So if you get a question correct, you think that you're smart, and if you get one wrong, you think you're not smart. That's a fixed mindset. And I myself, through middle school and high school, I would get A's and B's, occasionally C's if I wasn't studying, but I had a fixed mindset. I would be afraid to answer questions because if I got it wrong, I would think that I wasn't smart, or the other students would think that I'm not smart. And so I would be very reluctant to raise my hand and ask questions, even though that's not the case at all. So tip number one, don't focus on the outcome. Don't focus on the grade itself. And kind of continuing off that, the reason why this is so important is because if you have this mindset, again, like I said, you're much likely to raise your hand, because if you get the question wrong, you might be perceived as unintelligent, when again, other students probably have the exact same question. So we have to kind of start to, as we develop this growth mindset, get away from the fact or the idea, the perceived idea that if I get this question wrong, or if I get a question wrong, that I'm not smart. That's not the case at all. And it's actually been scientifically proven that that's not the case. Okay. So kind of piggybacking off of tip number one is tip number two, don't focus so much on the outcome, focus on the effort that you put in. So the key to creating a growth mindset is to begin to attach the release of dopamine. I put that in bold because a lot of you have probably heard that word before. I'll go into a brief detail of what that is. But we want to attach the release of dopamine not to the grade. I'm sure you all know you get an A or a B or whatever grade you were trying to get, and you feel really good, really excited, very happy. That's a release of dopamine. Okay, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is there's this idea that we pretty much release all the dopamine with the outcome, when that's not what we want for a growth mindset. What we want to do is actually start to facilitate the release of dopamine in the process of studying and working hard to get whatever, in this case, a grade that we want or something like that. Because if you only focus on the outcome, it's going to be detrimental in the future. In a growth mindset, you want to be able to attach the release of dopamine as you maybe get one question wrong, and then you go back and look at it again, or second or third time, and you get it right, and then you release a little bit of dopamine, and it kind of pushes you forward. And that's really what we want to get into. And with my students, we kind of do a couple of different things to facilitate this. So dopamine doesn't have anything to do with the popular connotation that it does. Dopamine basically is what's involved in motivation. It's a neuromodulator, I believe, neurotransmitter. I think it's a neuromodulator, but it's what pushes us forward to keep moving towards whatever outcome or goal that we're trying to achieve. So we want to focus on the effort so that we can release dopamine with the effort and not just the outcome. Okay. So focus on the effort. All right. Now, tip number 3, there's another big word, and I want you to write this down: neuroplasticity. All that means is that the brain is actually capable of change. And actually, through studies, I believe by Carol Dweck, if I'm not mistaken, probably many others as well, but we have the idea that, and we all know this, that children can learn multiple languages much quicker than adults and things like that, and that adults' brains can't really change and things like that. That's been proven. That's patently false now with new science that's come out, new research and whatnot. But so that's why I say this applies to parents as well. What I want you to take away from this: one, that the brain is possible change, whatever age it is, a good change. We want to realize that if you're working on a problem, again, you notice I'm relating all this to math because that's my specialty, but if you get something wrong, your brain actually grows. Okay, so let's say you're working on a linear equation, 2x plus 5 equals x, and you have to solve for x, and you get it wrong. You initially think, well, I just don't know how to do it maybe, or something like that, something negative that might pop up. Well, as you start to develop a growth mindset, you'll think, okay, well, whatever incorrect question that I got, okay, well, that's not the right thing to do. Let me go back and try again. And by you getting it wrong that first time, your brain actually created what's called a neural connection. I think I put neuronal connection, but a new neural connection. And basically what that means is your brain grew. So I could ask you, and to go off the second point, if you answer a question correctly, your brain shows very little to no activity and no growth whatsoever. So I could ask you, hey, what's 2 plus 2? And you could tell me 4. Your brain really didn't do anything, and it certainly didn't grow. So your brain really only grows in terms of what we're learning like this when you get something incorrect, because that tells your brain, okay, well, that's not what to do, right? And then you go back, and through the process of going through it again, whatever the question may be, that's when you still continue to create these new neural connections in your brain. And that's why neuroplasticity is so important, especially when it comes to a growth mindset, because I want you to realize that when we get things wrong, that's an opportunity for you to grow. So don't look at incorrect answers and think, well, especially imagine you have a 4-question quiz and you get one wrong, you get a 75%, and you think, oh, well, I got a C. I'm not very good at this. No, look at that one question and say, oh, this is an opportunity to grow. And there's nothing about this that's going to be like overnight. Like, oh, okay, great, I've got a growth mindset now. It's going to take time because you have to unlearn a lot of the stuff that is, kind of unintentionally or implicitly taught in school, where we kind of always focus on the grade that we get. But I want you to work on looking at your incorrect answers as ways to improve. That's what they are. And really as ways that your brain can grow. And this is not just me kind of, saying a bunch of random stuff. This is all scientifically proven by the research of Carol Dweck and others. And kind of with respect to math, Joe Boaler, both professors at Stanford University. Okay. So to go back over everything, one, I want you to know, again, kind of with a growth mindset, with hard work, you can learn anything and you can learn it well. That's the basic idea of a growth mindset. And that's what we want to focus on. So for additional resources, if you look at Carol Dweck, you can look at some of her early work in the early 2000s. She kind of was the one that got the growth mindset started. But what I would highly recommend, especially if you're a parent and wanting to help your child to not only gain a growth mindset, but what's called a mathematical mindset, Joe Boaler has a great book called Mathematical Mindsets. I read it. It changed the way that I worked with my students some years ago when I read it. And it's an absolutely fantastic read. It's not just for teachers, parents. It'll actually show you how to steer your child in the right direction and not solely focus on the grade that they get, but actually encouraging them when they get something incorrect and showing them, hey, this is a way to get better. And actually, again, I can't stress this enough. Let me go back. Your brain grows when you get something wrong. As weird as that seems, that's actually the case. It's just your brain creates new connections when you get something incorrect. Okay, so that's really what I want y'all to know about. In a nutshell, we could expand on this and talk on this for hours because it's just, especially with the topic of dopamine release and whatnot. But I wanted to just give you a couple of tips just to kind of show you how to get started in the direction of creating a growth mindset. So don't focus on the outcome. Okay, don't focus on the grade that you get. Okay, I got an A, so that's fantastic. Or I got a D, so I'm not good at math. Don't focus on that. That's proven to be false. You can learn anything. Sometimes you have to put in more work. You have to put in work, and that's what I want you to focus on. Focus on the effort that you put in and start to work on realizing the effort that you're putting in and releasing dopamine along the way, because that's going to continue to move you forward, and you'll get those little wins. That's what we call them, little wins, to kind of keep you going towards whatever your end goal is. Maybe you want a 1500 on the SAT, or you want to increase your grade, two grade levels, or whatever the case may be. That's what I want you. That's one of the biggest ones. Focus on the effort. Okay. And then the third is neuroplasticity. Your brain grows when you get answers wrong, not when you get them right. Okay, so look at each time that you get something incorrect as an opportunity to, one, to know what not to do, but really to look at it as a way to actually make your brain grow. That's the science behind it. Our brains have a high level of neuroplasticity, even in adults, even in myself. Luckily, thankfully, my brain can still grow. But those are the three key takeaways that I want you to start to kind of implement in whatever way possible. And you can do a lot of research on this and see more tips. But those are the three big ones, in my opinion. Don't focus on the outcome. Focus on the effort that you put in. And then realize whenever you get something incorrect, it's an opportunity to go back and grow, literally have your brain grow through, again, the idea of neuroplasticity. So I think this went a little bit longer than I meant it to be. I apologize for that, but I really wanted to kind of put this out there so that students and parents can kind of get an idea of what's all the hubbub about a growth mindset. But it's been shown that people with growth mindsets, the highest achievers in our society, they all have growth mindsets. If they get knocked down, they get back up. If they get something wrong in terms of a business idea, they don't just, shut down shop. They figure out, okay, well, let me tweak this and try it again, or try it again, or try it again. And I've done that myself. So try and implement these, and realize that it's not just an overnight solution, but it takes time. But I promise you, if you start to develop a growth mindset, and I wish I had when I was younger, it would have been a game changer. But try and implement these, and I promise you, it will change your life. Okay. So thank you for watching this. I hope it helped to shed a little light on what a growth mindset is. But I promise you, start to develop a growth mindset, start to implement some of these tricks, and I promise you, it will change your life. You or your child, whoever you're watching this for, I promise you, it is an absolute game changer in terms of what you can accomplish in life.